What's up, Riverdalians, and welcome back to The River's Edge. I'm your co-host, Haley, and I am here by myself today because Abby did a solo show last week, so we thought that it would be fair if I did one this week. Today, I'm going to be talking about something that's been quite a hot topic as of late. I'm going to be talking about the Stranger Things finale and how the Stranger Things finale connects with the Riverdale finale. So the discrepancies, the differences, what was good and what was bad, and everything about that. So, in the Stranger Things finale, something that I really liked was how the older teenagers got a very open ending. Steve was said, oh, he's a teacher, he's a coach, and this is what he does, but it's not set in stone. It doesn't say, oh, he lived this long and then he died, kind of thing. And in the Riverdale finale, they did that. And they did that with the kids. But they did that in the Riverdale finale where it was very solidified and very, final, where they showed the characters' entire lives and then how they died. Which I really liked how they chose not to do that with the older teenagers and the adults. They left it as a very open ending, which leaves a lot more room for fan interpretation and also fan works. And I personally liked that a lot. I will be talking mostly in the lens of the epilogue in the Stranger Things finale because that's the most reminiscent of the Riverdale finale. In the Riverdale finale, for all of the characters, it was like, they do this, and then they die. They do this, and then they die. And in the Stranger Things finale, they did a little bit of that with the younger kids, Max and Lucas. They get together and they stay together forever and they settle down and have a family, etc. But for the older teenagers, it was left pretty open, which was really nice. And I appreciated that. A hot topic of debate right now has been whether the Riverdale finale or the Stranger Things finale was better. Even though the Stranger Things finale was bad and it was written with ChatGPT and there's allegations that it was written with ChatGPT because of the Stranger Things documentary. It showed the Duffer Brothers have ChatGPT tabs open while they were writing the finale. So, it said that, which I hope isn't true because that'd be freaking crazy, but apparently it is. Somebody said Riverdale is crazy and it has so many plot holes and nothing on it is realistic, but at least it didn't use ChatGPT. I thought that was funny because nothing on Riverdale is realistic, but nothing on Stranger Things is realistic either. Hello? Nothing on Stranger Things is realistic either, so I thought that was funny. The Upside Down, the Demogorgon, the Mind Flayer, none of that is realistic. But the one thing I dislike about the Riverdale finale, don't get me wrong, I still cried when it aired. Something we say on this podcast all the time is if you really love something, you can criticize it and want it to be the best it can be. In the Stranger Things fandom, that's been a hot topic of debate. You want it to be the best it can be, but when you love something, you should be able to criticize it because you want it to be better, and you shouldn't have to be resolved to what was given to you. You can think of other things. That's what fandom is for. Do appreciate. And honestly, I like it that the Stranger Things finale was bad. Because then there's going to be more fandom interaction with it because people are going to want to be changing things. Which I think is nice. One of my, overarching opinions about the Riverdale finale, though, is that the Riverdale finale was not a goodbye to the characters we had known since season 1. It was goodbye to the characters from season 7. And yes, I know they had their memories, but the characters from season 1 to 6 were not the same characters as the ones in season 7. They had completely different experiences, completely different time period, different everything. So none of it is the same. And so it didn't feel satisfying at all. They said, oh, season 7, the finale, whatever, it's all going to be a love letter to the fans. It was not a love letter to the fans by any means, because if it was a love letter to the fans of Riverdale, you would have allowed us to say goodbye to the characters that we have known and loved since season 1. I completely block out the time skip in my brain. I usually cut it off at graduation, I only put in a few small things from time. I just don't care for it. Honestly, I love Riverdale as a whole, but everybody who knows me knows that I love Archie the most. I like to focus on the character and whatever that means for the character, but I find his arc and personality and just everything about him to be so much more authentic and interesting when he's in high school. So after the time skip, he's still the best character in my opinion. We will probably do later episodes on, I think that'd be interesting if we did something on the difference between the show before and after the time skip, and like, why did they even do it? Because it was random. I feel like they didn't have to skip to 7 years later. I guess that's where they wanted it to go, especially because they needed to bring the characters back together. But honestly, I think it could have been interesting to do something like other than that, where maybe the characters have to come together maybe a year later, where it's just not as distant. I know that's a common trope. They leave and come back multiple years later. We can definitely talk about that if that's something that any of our listeners would be interested in. Me and Abby could talk about what maybe could have been done in alternate history kind of things that would have been interesting. So we can definitely do that. Stranger Things, yeah. Stranger Things finale was shit from a butt and probably written with ChatGPT. But I did like how it actually let people say goodbye to the characters that they had known since season 1. Even if it wasn't in the best way, it was still the same characters that you had known the whole time. They didn't go through some crazy transformation and switch time periods. They went linearly through time. And I was happy. I was so overjoyed that I was able to say goodbye to Steve, and that it healed me in a way. Steve, he's my favorite character. Good ending in comparison to Archie. So I have loved Archie for a lot longer than I've loved Steve, but Archie's ending was just, he was the only one that didn't get a 70s outfit. And they just said, oh yeah, you get a random wife, and then you die. The only thing I liked was that Betty said you were buried next to your father. Which, of course, he was. Still, I think he would rather be buried next to his father and then have his wife be buried next to him than be buried next to his wife. He deserved to be buried next to his father, because his father is where he came from, and everything about him is where it all came from. Yeah. That was the only thing I liked about his ending. It wasn't the same Archie, even though I knew he had his memories and I still loved him. It wasn't the Archie that I had known since season 1, and so who had all of those crazy outlandish experiences, and so it didn't feel as satisfying. And we've talked about it before. When we did an episode about the pilot versus the finale, we talked about that during that one. And also Steve, his ending being open, just really made it feel a lot more refreshing to me. He's a teacher. He's on the up and up. He's gotten out of his... Because Steve, after high school, like Archie, was a bit aimless. And Steve was working at frickin' Scoops Ahoy and Family Video. Like, not a sustainable thing in his eyes. And him becoming a coach and then being a teacher, even if he's a sex ed teacher, I've always liked him being like a kindergarten teacher or something. But even if he's a teacher, and he clearly doesn't have a degree for it, so he does not have a teaching degree or license, but he can get it. It just felt so much more natural to me, and it healed me. It patched over the wounds in my heart over Archie's ending, because of how upset his ending made me. How he got nothing, even though he's the main character. Steve's supposed to die in season 1, and then ending and having a pretty good ending. I mean, he's separated from all of the people he loves, but maybe he needs that at least for a little bit so he can find who he is. His redemption arc was brought on by the people around him, and so he bases his identity on, oh, I'm the babysitter. Oh, I'm this. Oh, I'm that. And so allowing him to have a chance to find himself in a way that, like, the Riverdale characters were given, but they weren't given in the finale. Just, like, really healed me a little bit. Even though the Stranger Things finale was shit from a butt, the ending for my character that I like was so much better than the ending for my other character that I like. Like, Archie, baby, you deserve so much better from freaking Roberto. What was that? He's the main character, and you're gonna give him that shit from a butt ending? Ugh. Sorry about my little rant about Steve, but that was the point of this episode, is to compare the Stranger Things and the Riverdale finales. I didn't go into a lot of detail, but I talked about the feelings it makes me feel, what I liked and what I didn't like, and so I hope you enjoyed, and me and Abby will be back next week, next Riverdale Wednesday, both of us together. It just felt more natural for me to do a solo show since she did one last week, so goodbye. See you next Riverdale Wednesday.